everybody. Welcome back to Event About It, the Dynamic Dialogue After Show. I'm your host, Megan Martin, and I am here today with Ashley Faus. And quick reminder on who she is: head of Lifecycle Marketing Portfolio for Atlassian, and also author of the recently released Human-Centered Marketing: How to Connect with Audiences in the Age of AI. Cannot wait to unpack what's in here because it's more and more important every day as AI and the internet's getting messy. We need to remember we are humans. And the thing I love most about Ashley is that she's an expert at the intersection of content marketing, product marketing, and lifecycle demand gen, connecting the customer journey across multiple touch points and metrics. Nobody buys in the same way anymore. It's so omni-channel, multi-touch. We talked about that in the podcast. It's a messy world. So I also love connecting dots and pulling from different industries to make, this really intelligent journey. So I absolutely love that. So let's dive into the book first. I want to know, you wrote this in 6 months, which is almost unheard of for most authors. So I want to know what fueled you more: caffeine, chaos, or just pure conviction to write the book?
I'm going to go with caffeine. And my one caveat with the whole, how did you write a book in 6 months? I'm like, there's 3 steps. Step 1, wrestle with a problem for 10 years. Step 2, talk about how you solved that problem for 6 years. Step 3, write the book in 6 months. And then that's why it's fueled by caffeine, because it's like, I did all of the thinking and the testing and the iteration and codifying the majority of it for 6 to 10 years. And so the actual writing is the piece that came in 6 months. So I think there's a lot of different ways to get it done, but somewhere in there, you have to spend the time doing that foundational work. And I just chose to do that through social media and speaking and podcasts and short form content instead of starting with the long form content and working my way backwards.
I would imagine you probably had the chapters and most of the book, at least in your head, kind of already the flow of what you wanted to say. And it was just a matter of putting pen to paper.
That and expanding it. So a lot of people were like, oh, you have so much source material. If you just turned all of your LinkedIn posts into a book, you have a book. And I didn't pull all of the transcripts from, talks and podcasts and all of that, but the LinkedIn content that was reasonably differentiated was only about 15,000 words. And the book is more like 68,000 words. So it was squarely, doing the math on that, it was squarely 4x the amount of content, 4.5 times the amount of content that I needed. So definitely a different beast to put it into book format compared to one-off posts or, a 20 to 45 minute talk.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's a myth about AI or automation in marketing that just absolutely drives you nuts?
That it's going to take all of our jobs and that marketers are all going to get laid off. And this is how marketing is going to get done. And there's no need for marketers anymore. Nonsense. The last time I kind of had this same shift was when marketing automation platforms were first becoming a big thing. So HubSpot, Marketo. I even did an RFP with Silverpop. If any of your listener probably aren't as familiar with that side of it, but the marketing automation platforms, everybody was like, oh, it's going to kill marketing. No marketer is going to have a job. And instead what happened is it spawned an entirely new craft within marketing, which was the marketing automation specialist. And so, I want somebody who's Marketo certified or HubSpot certified. And it actually spawned this entirely new skill set and, methodology and all of that. So this idea that AI is going to kill all of marketing or is going to result in marketers being completely out of a job. Humans are just real bad at working themselves out of a job. We're not good at being lazy. So sure, it might change, but it's not going to fundamentally push us all out of work tomorrow.
I mean, the only way I think AI is going to push someone out of a job is if you don't know how to use AI. That's what's going to get you out of a job. If you're not willing to adapt and change and let AI tools do the busy work that you don't want to do, that automate all the stuff that is just busy time sucking work, where you can then be the creative and do the strategy, because that's still going to take humans to do all of that.
Exactly. Well, and building that trust, the rapport, the relationships, that human to human thing, that's the thing that you can't outsource or automate. And so that's the uniquely human work. And I talk about this in the book, right? building trust is really hard for AI to do because it doesn't have the context and the cultural markers and the language, and it literally can't meet someone in person because it's not a person.
Computers don't have empathy. Like, they can't even relate to humans because they're not human.
Exactly, exactly. And so there is still something like there's something fundamentally where humans want to connect with humans, like we are a social species. And
Yes.
that is the place where I think more and more as the tools can take over, to your point, some of the busy work or the repetitive tasks or the administrative tasks, that's going to free up more time for the humans to connect with other humans and build that trust and rapport.
No, agreed. Was there something you wanted to put in the book that maybe your editors took out and they said, no, this isn't really a fit. Maybe that we'll save that for another chapter or a bonus chapter or a second book?
Book. Yeah. I would almost say it's the other way. When I initially went through the book proposal and, sent them the layout or the outline and the chapters, they initially pushed back and said, "Are you sure this isn't 3 books?" And I was like, no, this is 1 book. This is not 3 books. Each of these chapters is not one whole book. So yeah, I actually feel like it kind of went the opposite way, where it was like, no, this is, it all belongs. There's some areas where I have passion and expertise that don't really fit in this particular body of work, particularly around public speaking, stage presence, some of the mechanics of speaking. So I come from a musical theater, singing, and acting background, and there's some like nitty gritty technical things about how your mouth works and your tongue works and your throat and your vocal cords and your diaphragm works, that if you know those techniques, it makes you a more dynamic and capable speaker. So none of that came into the book. And I do talk about that some on LinkedIn, but that's an area where I'm super passionate about it. I nerd out about it, but basically none of that fits with this core body of work.
Okay, well, maybe there's a second podcast episode where we're going to nerd out on all things stage presence because I love that too. Um, and maybe maybe that's the topic of your second book. We're not saying no, but maybe not saying no. So we talked about this in the podcast episode a little bit about the modern marketing funnel. Like the traditional marketing funnel, it's still there. It hasn't lost its charm. We still love it. But I think things are changing and they're changing rapidly. And you talk about this quite a bit in the book. So from an event perspective, where do you think that events sit in today's marketing funnel? And how do we sort of align events with that long-term life cycle thinking?
I would say, first we need to shift our mindset to think of the entire journey as more of a playground. And if you think about playing on a playground, what's the right way to play? Is it to go slides and then swing and then merry-go-round? Is it to skip the swings altogether? What about the people who are sitting on the park bench? Are they using the playground the wrong way by just sitting and, enjoying the energy and in watching the kids play, right? All of those are excellent ways to use the playground. And so I think that as we think about where events kind of fit, it's less, oh, they're an awareness play, or oh, they're decision making. They're to close the pipe gin, or they're to close the opportunity, right? And really thinking about what is the intent for the audience and what is that next action for the audience. So in the podcast, you mentioned webinars and how a lot of people don't think of those as events. They just think of them as, oh, it's just a one-off piece of content. So depending on who the audience is and what your goals are and the next action for the audience, that is what informs how the event fits into the overall life cycle, marketing mix, et cetera. So, for example, at Atlassian, we have a very robust community. And these are people who are power users, they're champions of our products internally, and they love to nerd out about Atlassian, products and use cases and practices and how things work. And so we actually empower those people to host their own local chapter events on a smaller scale. Sometimes we'll send an Atlassian if they invite someone to speak. We'll give them a sneak peek of, forthcoming products. We'll work with them to be alpha or beta users or lighthouse customers. And so again, in that case, it's really looking holistically at the life cycle, but from more of almost a post-purchase or a retention standpoint. But then when we give them that sneak peek or we invite them to be beta or lighthouse customers, isn't that technically more in the if we go to the looping decision journey, which is kind of
Sure.
the next iteration of the funnel around retention and growth, that in the traditional looping decision journey drops them back into awareness. And it's like, oh no, they're fully aware of Atlassian and our products and how we help. But in this particular case, they're getting a sneak peek or a new look or helping to co-create,
Yeah.
that experience in the products with us. And so that's an area where, yes, the community events are just one piece of it, but they're part of that bigger relationship. And depending on how things are ebbing and flowing in that relationship, it might be that we're doing kind of that trust or affinity intent where it's just like, feel excited that you're working with us, have a good relationship with us, which might be sending a speaker to their event or, funding some pizza or drinks and snacks for the event that they're hosting. Or it might be more of that buy intent or use intent by asking them to be, beta testers or lighthouse customers for us. So there's really a lot of different opportunities. And that's just one example where it's not, oh, events need to go from awareness to decision, and more, how do you match each of those moments to the different intents?
Yeah, I definitely think when I think about where events fit into it, it doesn't feel like a funnel to me. It feels more cyclical, if you will. Like it's just this like round robin, like as they're going through the funnel, then maybe they go back up. Like, yeah, they purchased the product, but now they're an influencer for, like you said, a new feature that's coming out. And I just love the way that you think about that and frame it, where it might be a funnel that drops into another funnel, or maybe it's kind of like a chutes and ladders game where like we push them over here and over here. And I also love your playground analogy, especially when it comes to like community development and how to do that, because not every, like, so many times people are like, oh, I talk a lot about on like the event to community model. So like, how do we turn attendees into these power users and build these 365 communities from it? And they're like, well, how come not everyone that came to the event is posting every single day? Well, first of all, you drove them to a new place. They have to get used to it. It's not part of their day to day. But also, like, you need lurkers in your community just as much as you need people who are posting every day and sharing and commenting and liking, just like we have at our events. Like, some people are going to go to half the sessions, they might go explore. You need lurkers and power users because that's what makes the community. Like, it also goes back to just being human. Like, not every environment is I'm going to thrive in, and that's okay, but I just still want to exist. I want to sit on the park bench and watch and observe and love it. And I just love the way that you think about that and frame it in the book, because there's so much application for that beyond just a marketing perspective. Even how we design events, how we design communities, there's a place for everybody depending on what you're wanting to get out of it too.
Exactly.
So when we're talking about human-centered marketing and event strategy specifically, where do you think events and sometimes even companies sort of miss the mark and don't think about that human first?
So it's super interesting. I'll speak to this both from the attendee perspective and as a speaker. One of the things in my bio, I say I'm a marketer, writer, and speaker by day, and a singer, actor, and fitness fiend by night. And that fitness fiend for me shows up with kind of like bodybuilder mindset. So I'm super dedicated to my protein intake each day. How much protein am I getting? And so when I go to an event and they're like, we provide, breakfast, lunch, and morning snack and afternoon snack, I show up and it's literally bagels, scones, cookies, waffles. And I'm like, where is my protein? Like, y'all. And I get it. Protein is more expensive. It's more expensive to get eggs. It's more expensive to get beef jerky. It's more expensive to get Greek yogurt, right? Like,
Yeah.
I get it. But I'm not going to eat this straight sugar. I'm going to have to go off site and find myself a proper hearty breakfast or breakfast sandwich or set of snacks. And I'm just not going to eat that at the conference. And so there's an element of like, well, we can't accommodate everybody. Fair enough. I agree with you. But that's a harder sell for me if you're like, no, we accommodate everyone. I'm like, you literally don't accommodate bodybuilders. And I'm not the only person, right? Like, particularly, I joke, there's a couple folks on my team who are also in a similar mindset. And we all joke, we're like, all right, who wants to go off site to get some eggs so that we just know that we're fueled properly. So like that's one way.
But just as humans in general, I mean, we've talked many episodes about the importance of the food and the protein intake. Like, there's a reason there's an afternoon slump at events. Is because you fed people nothing but like carbs and sugar all day long, and then you expect them to sit in dark rooms for hour-long sessions, and then you generally feed them nothing protein forward at lunch either, and then you always have desserts and snacks and all the fun stuff. Trust me, we love it. But then at 2 o'clock comes and you're like, how come no one's paying attention in the 2 o'clock sessions? Why
Yeah.
is everyone leaving at 2 o'clock to go do something else? Like, look what you fed them every day. Like, humans are not meant to eat like this.
No, it's the crash. And I mean, it's the same thing with water stations too, right?
Oh,
Like,
yes.
and again, I get it. The question of how many water stations is too many or whatever, but like my number one tip for anyone is drink more water. And everyone laughs like, ha ha. And I'm like, no, I'm being serious. That's how you don't get sick. It's how you don't get tired. It's how you don't lose your voice. It's how you don't get a headache. Like if you work a booth with me, my joke is that you have to chug a full bottle of water before you can leave your shift. And like, again, everybody laughs and I'm like, no, seriously, if you don't have an empty water bottle, why not? Like what happened that you didn't drink your water while you were on shift, right? Like I'm very serious about it because it's core to functioning. So that's one piece. And then from the speaker thing, and this is super nitpicky, and I've posted about this on LinkedIn and event organizers were like, "What?" But dude, stools. Do not make your speakers sit on a stool, especially for panels. And it's a stool that's just high enough that like you kind of have to like jump or shimmy onto it. Like, how am I supposed to get up on this thing?
Well, and then your posture, like talking about like speaking well. And like,
Yes.
again, I think we have to do another episode with you on all public speaking things. But on a stool, then you're like hunched over, like you can't sit right. And what if there's a woman next to a man that's like 6 feet tall and you're 2 feet tall? Like,
Well, and then
stools
like,
are the worst.
yeah, and then there's maybe like a table, but it's so far down to put your water, and so you're like, how do I lean over? And oh my gosh, and especially, I mean, it's less common, and I work in tech now, so it's less common for women to be wearing like pencil skirts or dresses. But I remember I used to wear pencil skirts and sheath dresses, which are like tighter, a tighter silhouette. Trying to get up on a stool and like sit in a way with my legs crossed so that you can't see straight up my skirt, dude, struggles. And so now anybody who's gonna speak, I'm like, honestly, wear pants because
Yeah.
then you have a place to put the mic pack. You guarantee that you're not gonna be flashing people accidentally. But to the event organizers, please do not make people sit on a stool. Like it's so awkward for everyone in every way.
Agreed. I mean, I have like a speaker uniform every time I speak now. I'm in like jeans and a bodysuit and a blazer. Like it's safe regardless of what they throw at me on stage or what I'm sitting or do I have a handheld or a lav or whatever. Like that outfit can accommodate anything that goes on at the conference for sure.
These are like basic things that it when you think about the human of like literally what is the experience for both the audience and the speaker from a posture standpoint or a movement standpoint. And so I think that's one thing. I think a lot of people try to almost engineer this, and it's things like, oh, we're going to leave space for networking because some people like to have conversations. And it's like, I mean, yes, but fundamentally, biologically, how do things work? You need protein, you need water, you need to be able to sit with good posture if you want to perform at even a decent baseline level, let alone, elite performance level if you're trying to book speakers or something like that.
Yeah, and talk about human centered. Networking receptions are made for extroverts.
And
They are
I'm real good
not
at those, and even I don't like them. Like it's very hard. It's very hard to walk up to a
right.
stranger where you don't know what you want from the conversation or what they want from the conversation. And I don't think that it always has to be, give me a job or sell me a product or I mean, but fundamentally conversations for most of these events, there has to be an exchange of value. And networking events, nobody knows what the exchange is for. And so you spend a lot of time like dancing around it. It's very, and I'm an extrovert. So like in theory, I thrive in those situations.
Well, and then they're dark, and then there's loud music, and then there's alcohol involved. And so, like, the experience deteriorates as the night goes on. I'm generally not an extrovert. I am not going to walk up to a stranger at a networking reception. Like, I'm going to find the quiet place in the corner and chat with whoever stranger comes, finds the quiet corner with me. And like, that's the circle. Or I'm going to find the 3 people I know in the room and just like cling tightly to the extrovert friends that I have there and be like, just introduce me to people that you talk to randomly, because they are networking receptions by design are not for human design, in my opinion.
No, I agree with you.
So on that same vein of like talking about human centered, this whole conversation on personalization and like designing events and designing marketing that's very personal. But how do you do that at scale? Like, how do you do a build your own adventure that's a human design, whether it's a marketing journey, an event journey? How do we personalize that scale?
So there's 2 things that I talk about in the book as kind of frameworks. The first is content depths, and then the second is intent. And so from a content depths perspective, this is conceptual, strategic, and tactical. So conceptual is the what and the why of the idea. It helps the audience frame up the problem space. Strategic is tools, processes, and key knowledge components that have to be in place to make that conceptual idea reality. It equips the audience to do their own research, gives them the criteria for success, and helps them think about the solution space. And then tactical is the nitty gritty, where the rubber meets the road, things that need to happen, daily or monthly or consistently to implement the strategy to make that conceptual idea reality. When you listen to that, you realize there is nothing about buying a product, talking about a specific company, right? It really is at the core of the idea. And then on the intent side, it's more than just buy intent or use intent. There's trust or affinity, buy, use, help or remediation. So like if you have a problem, if you can't log in, if you get lost, how do you solve it? And then true learn intent, which is, something you can apply regardless of whether you buy that company's offering or not. So when we overlay that from an event perspective, that influences the type of programming that you have. Do you have deep dive workshops? And it literally is like, you kind of have to have a prereq so that you've got that 201, 301, or 401 level content, not just the 101 level content. If you translate that down, so that's at let's say that's at the strategic level, right? You have asked me a question at the conceptual level around personalization. The strategic level is making sure that you have different depths of content in your programming. At a tactical level, that means that you need to literally put it on the agenda. This is a 1.0 level. This is meant for beginners. If you are looking for more advanced content, you might check out these other sessions. If there's like a workshop where it's a 4 or 5 hour workshop, right? Like you might put on there a prereq for this is this other session, or this is a deep dive session. It's really meant for people who are already experts in this field. So if you fundamentally can't answer these, 2 or 3 questions, this might not be the session for you. I've had scenarios where I've been told maybe it's an advanced audience, and then my speaker feedback comes back. It was too advanced. I'm just a beginner. The information went over my head. And I'm like, I can explain this further, but I was told that the audience is an expert level audience, and vice versa, where I'm told it's a beginner level audience. So I come all the way back and people are like, why is she defining these standard acronyms? And I'm like, I was told you guys were beginners, so I thought I needed to give you, a little bit of education or basic definitions, right? So that would be in a way that I apply that content depth and then the intent directly to the programming from an agenda perspective and a speaker selection perspective, and then telling the audience, here is exactly what you're going to get so that they can choose which depth of content they're ready for.
Yeah, and I think a couple other podcast guests that we've had on and upcoming, we've talked about where AI can become every attendee's personal assistant. And this is where I get really excited about the future of events, because exactly what you're talking about is maybe after day 1, I can go to this AI assistant, or the bot's coming to me saying, hey, we noticed these are all the things that you went to today. Here's the 2.0 where you can learn more about that. Or here's some complementary topics that maybe you want to explore same, but different. And you want to expand on that and look at area B that complements area A as opposed to A 2.0. And I think that's personalization at scale to me, and how we can leverage technology to make sure why and the intent of me coming to that program is actually being fulfilled, and where we can leverage technology. And then we, as event organizers and event marketers, can use the creative side now, because the AI is kind of doing that personalization at scale. Everyone's getting exactly what they need and what they wanted out of the conference. And we can then focus on the surprise and delights and shifting and dealing with all the things that come up with producing events, producing your booth, training in the right way, training our speakers to make sure they're delivering the content that's needed. So I love that. And I think we don't focus enough on intent information.
I think too, connecting this to the post-event distribution and that life cycle marketing, again, my mind goes into the now I'm like, okay, post-event.
Yeah.
Not only connecting that event level content, but connecting to all of the other content from either your content marketing team, product marketing team, or within your life cycle campaigns, and matching it and saying, okay, based on the sessions you went to, our upcoming webinar is probably a great fit. Or we saw that you saved, the session that Megan was going to present, but we saw you didn't get to attend. Here's a blog post that Megan authored for us. You might like it. Or here's 2 or 3 other papers or white papers or blog posts or social media profiles from past speakers that speak on this same topic that you might like to engage with, right? So particularly when you are a larger company or a more established company or event where you've got that repository, and you bring your speakers back to do webinars or write blog posts or share in other ways onto a podcast, you can serve more of that content to those people by matching it with that intent or attendance data from the conference. So I agree with you. I think there's a lot of potential to automate that both at the event and after the event, to go mine all the stuff that you have in the repository to continue to engage that person with either by intent or more learn intent content, and give them that explicit path for which way they want to go.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we talked about this in the podcast, that there's so much content and there's so much data that comes out of these events. And whether you're directly asking that intent information or not, you're still getting that information in other forms of data. It's just a matter of how you're looking at, how you're connecting those dots, how you're telling the story. And there's so much potential that we haven't even really touched on a best practice in the events world and an event marketing world, that I think AI is going to change the game in post event, and connecting those dots of, you didn't come to this session, so here's some stuff that we think you might like, or, oh, you went to these sessions, here's some others we think you'll like that are maybe not in that track that you had initially said. Because we know as humans, what we say we want and then we go consume are not the same thing. And so leveraging some of that data to help people connect the dots and be like, you said this and you went to this, here's that middle ground where I think you might enjoy some thought leadership or nudge to a product or something like that. Last 2 questions, some fun ones to end on. What's the most dramatic marketing campaign you've ever pulled off?
I'll go with one that was specifically for events that I think was both funny and was also had a fail. So we had this idea of the IT hero, and I think this was for either Microsoft Ignite or for like RSA, something like that, a security conference. And a lot of those, the like hacker in a hoodie is the go-to imagery for those conferences. They're all like black and green, very serious, right?
The whole conference called Black Hat.
Yeah, literally black hat, right? That's like the whole motif. And so we went the complete opposite way, and we almost did this like Captain Underpants kind of guy where it's like kind of overweight and underwear, but he had this cape and it was like, this is your IT hero. And so it was a little bit risky because, playing into some stereotypes and completely breaking with the other end of the stereotypes for that industry. So we decided to get a cutout of the guy like with the face, so you could stick your face in there. And then we got these little orange capes so that you could basically wear the cape. So the thinking was, you'll come to the booth, there's this absurd life-size cutout, you'll stick your face in, we'll give you a cape, and you can like hold out the cape so it's like you're this guy. But the cutout dimensions, it ended up only being like 4 feet tall. Like it was like a child's size. And so it was just ridiculous because people would walk by and were like, am I supposed to Sorry, what is this?
This is where you could use the stool, right? You could put him on the stool instead of the speakers, and then it's at least close to normal height.
And like you couldn't get your whole face in, so your face was like squeezed. Oh my gosh. But people thought it was hilarious. And so they wanted to take pictures because it was just,
I mean,
lean
into it.
It was ridiculous. So it did stand out on the show floor. We had a great story to tell. The swag, a lot of people came by and were like, oh my gosh, my kids will love this. I'm like, yes, please look at my logo while your kids run around, before nap time, right?
Hey, that's a swag piece I'm in for all the time.
So I would say that's the most outlandish, just because the initial concept was kind of ridiculous and then the execution ended up just being absurd.
That's turning a mishap into marketing gold right there. What marketing buzzwords need to go on vacation and not come back?
I mean, MQL. I just cannot with that. The definition makes no sense. It's not the same. It doesn't even mean anything. Marketing qualified lead, like what does that even mean? You have to define it. And the acronym MQL. No. We're done with that.
Yeah, and then they talk about like conversions from MQL to sales. Like everything really is just an SQL at the end of the day. Now, where that SQL came from, was it from a salesperson, from a marketing piece, a content piece, an event piece? Like that's where attribution models come in, but I couldn't agree with you more. I don't even understand why we have MQLs either.
That's a whole separate thing. Again, going back to the funnel and this approximation for consideration, but from marketing, no. We're done. We're done with MQLs.
I couldn't agree more. Well, thank you so much for joining Event About It today. And until next time, we'll see you then.
Thanks for having me.